Hey, what's up guys? Roger here from Kite. So this week I wanted to do a quick review, an updated review on the 2020 Cabrinha Moto, which is actually unchanged for this year with the exception of some material changes like some Dacron and the new nano wrist stop, which I think makes it more durable. Super exciting, I know. But aside from these changes, the Moto for the most part is unchanged from our first review. Now that said, we've had this kite for a while, we've done a lot of testing, and we've gained some new insights. And as well, I just wanted to elaborate on some things that I feel like we had left out on the original review. And I had mentioned that I was going to do a comparison of the Drifter and the Moto. So we're going to kind of dive into that a little bit. But long story short, we're going to elaborate on everything that you need to know about the Moto that we've learned in the last year. Let's get to it. Hey guys, don't forget to click that eye icon in the upper right hand corner of your screen for the full written review and some bonus content. We've been working on creating the most in-depth reviews online, and in order to keep the video a little shorter, I'll be going into more detail in the written review. So in case you're not familiar with the Moto, just to get you up to speed, last year Cabrinha released a new kite to not replace the Switchblade but kind of complement the lineup. And what it was, every year riders are asking for a lighter bar pressure and a faster kite. But every time they change the Switchblade, the purists would kind of lose their minds. And what's happened with the Switchblade is they've kind of refined it to a point where they really can't change it anymore. And truth be told, we really hope that they don't. But when it comes to the Moto, it was a very clever solution to a problem. A lot of riders are kind of gravitating towards kites like the FX, the Drifter, and those were very niche kites. One was a freestyle kite and one was a wave kite. But they had those traits that a lot of riders are looking for, which kind of left a gap for free riders who just wanted an easy-to-use, fun kite to loop with, and something that was just faster and more modern to get out and ride. So one of the big takeaways from last year's review and overview is that the Moto was a faster, lighter, kind of all-around free ride kite, catered towards riders that want to get into kite loops or get in the waves or hydrofoil or pretty much do anything with a more modern kite. And the biggest benefit here was that the Moto, it catered to an active, advanced kite flyer, but it did not require one. Now, with the year having passed, we've had a lot of time to get out and have our team test this kite. We've kind of learned some new insights, and I felt that last year maybe we had left out some of the trade-offs as we really didn't know this kite as well as some of the other kites. And then there was some questions as well when it came to hydrofoiling and wave applications, and hopefully I can explain to you how and why this kite works well in these situations, just to give you some more perspective on it. So to get this review started, let's start on a positive note and talk about what we've liked about the kite. So what we found was, of all the kites in Cabrinha's lineup, the Moto was the easiest and the most playful to use, and probably the most fun for kite looping if you're not that powered mega looping kite loop guy that wants to be on the FX. And if that's you, if you want to do kind of more that king of the air style, or you just want to do very, very powered kite loops, the FX is an amazing kite for that. But if you're the average rider who wants to just do back roll hand drags, you want to do dark slides, you want to do more, more baser kite loops and down loop transitions and things like that, we've really come to love the Moto for this. And we even filmed a whole playlist with our team rider Blake Olson, where we paired him with an 11-meter Switchblade and some Motos, and that's all we actually used to film that playlist. So when it comes to the Moto, true to what we originally said, it is a very fun kite for that all-around kiteboarder that likes to incorporate kite loop-based tricks. If you want to get active with your kite and fly something more modern, the Moto is an incredible kite for that. And what we found was, in the lineup, when it comes specifically to kite loop-based tricks, is the Moto is the easiest of all the kites to do loops with. So it's very, very fast, but it doesn't have a very powerful pull. So for perspective, the Switchblade, you can kite loop a Switchblade no problem, but it has a very grunty, powerful pull. The FX has a very explosive pull that kind of yanks you, and then with the Moto, it's a very smooth, easy, relaxed, kind of more mellow pull. So it just makes learning kite loops very easy. And something we've noticed is there's a lot of riders out there who are really interested in learning kite loop based tricks. Even the more simple ones like the back roll hand drag kite loop. But what happens is they learned on a 5-strut freeride kite with a lot of bar pressure, stronger, wide arc with a very heavy kite loop, and they're intimidated. So if you get on a kite like the Moto, what's going to happen is it's going to make that much easier for you. Now obviously you don't need to learn these on a Moto. You will be just fine learning these on a Switchblade or any other kite for that matter. A lot of that is kind of getting out of your own way and honestly just doing it. But the Moto, it will make it easier. So don't misunderstand me. I'm not telling you that you need the Moto to learn kite loops by any means. Will it make it easier? It will a little bit, yes, because there's not a lot of power in the kite loop. And when it comes to more advanced kite loopers, because this kite is so fast and easy to kite loop with, it really is a great choice for that rider who's just into that active kite flying style. And truth be told, your first 2 or even 3 years of riding, you're not really going to benefit that much from the Moto. It is easy to use. It does have light bar pressure, which people love. But, you won't really start appreciating having a fast kite like this or something that loops this easy until you kind of build that level of kite awareness where it's something you're actively thinking about. You really want to, jump and redirect the kite and do a heli loop or send it in the window. So while this kite is kind of a preference for advanced riders, it's still very much a very easy to use kite. It just doesn't quite have the same low end as a lot of the other kites. And when it comes to newer riders, we did kind of learn something new about the Moto, and it's not so much a problem with the kite as it is a consequence of the fact that the kite is so fast with such a light bar pressure that when you're scraping the bottom of the barrel on any of the kite's wind ranges, if you oversheet the kite by mistake, it is possible for it to shoot ahead of you, and this is pretty rare, and if you're an experienced kite flyer, chances are it won't happen to you. But if you're a new rider, you might oversheet it. And don't get me wrong, I taught kiteboarding for 6 years, and this was one of the most common things was, teaching students how to control the kite, not oversheet it, fly it with their fingertips. But because that bar pressure is so light and the kite has such a fast speed through the window that you can kind of oversheet it. And the main takeaway here on this new insight is the Moto, it's going to perform much better on the high end of its wind range. And it's like a lot of the other 3-strut kites. They just perform better when you're flying them in the appropriate wind range and you're not scraping the very bottom. So let's talk about hydrofoiling. Now obviously there were some questions last year, as it seems like every year brands are kind of releasing a new hydrofoil kite, and they're all completely different. Even Cabrinha has the Aviate, which is kind of aimed a little bit at hydrofoilers. Completely different kite. So there's different benefits to picking any one of these kites. And most of the guys in the shop here who are into hydrofoiling will gravitate towards like the drifter or, any kite that has any drift to it. But there are some advantages to going with the Moto. So you can almost think of it like a smaller, more pivotal, direct, faster Switchblade. And the key word here is it's a very direct kite. So if you're really into hydrofoiling or you watch a lot of hydrofoilers, you'll notice that they're very active with their kite flying. And so you need a kite that's going to respond directly to your feedback and instantly. So one of the huge advantages of the Moto is it's very consistent, predictable pull. It's a very light pull and it's a very direct kite. So you can start doing a lot of loops and getting that kite moving around. If you go to a smaller size, you can kind of create that apparent wind and keep the kite whipping around while you're hydrofoiling. So in that sense, this is actually a very ideal kite. And to give you perspective, if you were to take, say, like a Switchblade, which of course you can hydrofoil on a Switchblade or any of the 5-strut kites like that, but they're slower and they're less responsive, so you almost have to think like 3 steps ahead. Before you make a turn or when you're moving, you really need to get that kite positioned correctly. There's going to be more delay in those other kites. So what it comes down to is with hydrofoiling, you can really respond in the moment, get into a flow, because the kite's not super grunty, it's not going to just rip you off the board, there's not a lot of consequences to getting very active with it. So in that sense, this is how the Moto excels as a hydrofoiling kite. Alright, so let's get on to the fun part. Let's talk about the waves. So maybe one of the biggest questions that we've encountered this year was, where does the Moto stack up to the drifter? Why would Cabrinha have 2 kites kind of aimed both at wave riders, and what can you expect? And we've kind of figured out how to explain this to you. So they're both catered towards the waves, but there are some significant differences. But just to give you perspective before we dive into this, when I was chatting with Dave from Cabrinha, who actually helped design the drifter, he lives in Maui. he has a quiver of motos and he's loving that kite, so that does kind of say a lot. But what this comes down to is, let's do a small little versus video within this review. So with the drifter, you have a kite that is going to drift down the line, meaning if you outrun your lines, they will slack and you'll still be able to control that kite. And that's probably the biggest advantage to the drifter, is it will drift down the line with you. When you're done with the wave, you can still control the kite even with slack lines. It's not going to fall too far back and fall out of the wind window. This is a pure wave kite, as pure as they get. And what you get out of a kite like the drifter is, when you drop it on a wave, the kite is going to drift with you. So the lines can actually go slack. You can still control the kite. It's never going to fall behind you or fall out of the sky. It's customizable for the wave, so you can set it for onshore and offshore conditions. And when it comes to sheeting, the drifter has a very on and off D-power. So when you sheet out, you can really shut the power off on this kite. When you need power, you can re-engage and instantly you have a lot of power within that kite. Now, moving on to the Moto, it's different in the fact that when you drop in on the wave, the kite can actually keep up with you. So because it's a fast kite, it's not going to fall behind you and kind of fall out of the sky. But the biggest difference here is you're going to be paying a little more attention to your kite on the Moto. So with the drifter, you can very much almost ignore the kite, do your thing on the wave. You can kill all the power and really experience just surfing. With a Moto, you can kind of do the same thing. You can really experience the wave, but you're always going to kind of be a little bit mindful of that kite. You're going to be controlling it with the bar, just making sure that it's moving along with you, and it will keep up with you. So it's actually an excellent wave kite. You can still depower it, but it's going to be kind of a more gradual, smoother depower. So as you depower the kite and kind of get on the wave and you're actually surfing the wave, fully wave power, you can do that. But what you cannot do is slack the lines and control the Moto. So that's very much a wave kite specialty. And then obviously as well, when you're in more very diverse situations, if waves are your specialty, with the drifter you can set it up for all kinds of different wave conditions, so there's a huge advantage there. But for most kiteboarders, particularly ones who just want a good general all-around kite, the Moto is excellent at this. And before the Moto came out, something I used to do when I was going in the waves is, if I only had a freeride kite, I would just size down my kite by like 1 to 2 sizes. And effectively what I was doing was a much less refined version of the Moto. I was getting my kite to be faster. I was taking a bunch of the low end out of the kite and just really working it in the waves. And the Moto just takes up a step further. So what this comes down to is those two kites work completely different in the waves. They both work really well in the waves. The drifter works much better in the waves. So if waves are your main game, you definitely want to be on a drifter. If you want kind of more of an all-around general freeride kite, something to do kite loop tricks with, something to jump with, and a lot of other things, then the Moto is a little more suited towards everything. So one final point that I wanted to elaborate on a little bit here in this review is something that I didn't touch on last year. Honestly, I hadn't even thought about this until right as I was writing this video and I kind of started speaking with a few friends. And what I found was a lot of people were getting a lot of feedback. There's actually a lot of people who are happy with the unhooking of this kite. So if unhooked freestyle is something that you like to do, you can do it on the Moto. And it almost seems a little silly to say that because obviously the FX is the best kite in the lineup for unhooked freestyle. But when it comes to the Moto, it's an all-around kite, and I don't think I really touched on the fact that all-around kites, they do work fine for this category for most riders. It's not going to hold you back by any means. So for perspective, the Moto it's almost like an NDV8, but with Cabrinha's kind of build and feel. So it's that general all-around kite that still will unhook and do all of these tricks. And very much like the waves, something that I used to do with the heavier freeride kites, like my Switchblade, is if I was going to do an unhook session on that kite, I would usually size down just to take some of the low-end power out and make it a little bit faster so I could use board speed. And the Moto is just a little more refined version of that, so you don't really need to take the low end out of the Moto. It's not going to have an explosive pop of slack, but like all freeride kites, this isn't going to hold your average Joe rider back from trying basic unhooked freestyle tricks. So in summary here, you can almost think of the Moto as the Switchblade as a younger cousin. They have a lot in common, but they each have their own personality. And looking back, it's kind of funny. I now realize that to solve a lot of the problems of the heavier 5-strut kites, I was sizing those down. And the Moto is just a much more refined way to get all of those benefits, reducing some of the low end, making the kite faster, allowing you to get into the waves, allowing you to use the kite for various applications. So just to get this review wrapped up here, this kite is kind of aimed at that all-around rider who wants to do a little bit of everything, but doesn't want that heavy low end that comes with your standard 5-strut freeride kite. So you get the added benefit of the speed in the waves. It's a very good responsive hydrofoiling kite. If you're into kite loops, this really is the most playful, easiest kite to loop in Cabrinha's lineup. And all in all, we're big fans of it, but you should be aware that you are giving up all the benefits that you would get from some of the gruntier kites. The big trade-off here is the Moto doesn't have the greatest low end, so it performs its best when you're riding it on the higher end of that kite's wind range. So, and hey guys, Versus, like I always say, it's an open forum, and we really do welcome your feedback. So if any of you out there have been flying the Moto the last year, leave your thoughts, leave your notes, and just help other people kind of figure out if this is the right kite for them. That's the whole point of this series, is just to help people figure out what kite is right for them. And as always guys, please don't forget to click the eye icon and visit our Knowledge Center. We spent the last couple of years creating a lot of content, and we're just now starting to get this all cataloged and organized. So this will take you to our blog where you can read more about this kite, read the review, see some of the bonus content, and you can also kind of get navigating through our kiteboarding knowledge center, our hydrofoiling knowledge center, some of our lifestyle videos. More or less our entire YouTube channel is kind of getting collected and organized on the website now. So hey guys, if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. And if you've already subscribed, hit the bell icon so you can get a notification every time I drop a new video, review, or a trick tip. And until next time, this has been Rygo.